Hello, everyone. We are now going to talk about the third section of your diet analysis project. And here's where you're really going to start to dig in and make some critical assessments that go a little bit deeper than we did in the previous section of the project regarding how well your current intake is meeting your needs and what specific changes you might want to make to your current habits in order to better meet your needs in the future. This section of the project is worth 10% of your overall grade, and as always, we've got information listed here on the first page regarding how to save it, what to include when you upload your documents, all that good stuff. So let's get into the specifics. You're going to reflect on your weight goals. And I think that part's pretty self-explanatory. You're then going to identify 3 aspects of your current eating pattern that are going well for you. They're promoting health and or meeting your nutrition needs. So be specific. Probably it has to do with a micro or macronutrient intake, that type of thing. Next, you can use one of the tables you completed from section C of part 2 of this project to go back and look at each nutrient and whether you identified that you were under consuming or that your needs were met for that nutrient. So you're going to complete that. And then if you either overconsumed or underconsumed that nutrient, identify 3 foods that you would change to help you come closer to meeting your needs. So in this case, sodium was being overconsumed. And so the next column reflects 3 foods in the 3 days that were tracked that were high in sodium, so that making changes to those could support bringing the sodium intake down to recommended levels. In this final column, you need to list at least 3 strategies that would help you either replace the foods in this third column or perhaps change the serving size of those foods, something that would allow you to make changes to your intake to help you get closer to recommendations for that particular nutrient. In this example, the 3 foods here listed were each addressed. So the frozen dinner, the suggestion was that they would replace that frozen dinner with a sub from Subway. The soy sauce would simply be cut down. So perhaps they had started with 3 tablespoons at a meal, and so here they indicate they would use no more than 1.5 tablespoons. Instead of the canned soup that was consumed initially, the specific change that could be made would just be to switch to a low sodium soup. Now, it's very important that you really think about what changes you would make. If you are feeling like there's no way I am ever going to try the low sodium soup, I've had that once before, it's gross, come up with a different alternative. You could just choose to have a totally different food instead of the soup that day. So whatever the revision or change is, make it a strategy that is actually something that you would consider trying at least. Again, the purpose of this project is ideally to truly be meaningful to you and give you ideas on how you can continue to improve your health and well-being based on what you're learning in the class. There's another example here. This nutrient was overconsumed. This nutrient was underconsumed in the example. So in this case, the student has listed 3 foods that would provide carbohydrate. So the whole grain bread is theoretically a food that could be added to lunch that wasn't being eaten before. Similarly, the apple could be added as a snack, and the cereal could be added for breakfast. It could also, again, simply be an increase in portion size. Perhaps, and you still want to keep the portion sizes appropriate, but perhaps the person was eating only a half a cup of cereal at breakfast, and they're going to bump it up to 1 cup. So once more, just think about changes that would actually be appropriate for you. things that you would be willing to try. Your third example is one where the nutrient needs were met. So you just indicate that in the second column, and you can put NA for the third and fourth columns. So you'll fill this out for each of the nutrients listed. And then you're going to make some priorities about which ones you would do first. So you might want to think about your personal and family health history, which were things you reflected on in part 2 of this project. Or it might just be other priorities that you have based on nutrition recommendations that are particularly important or relevant to you. But you're going to choose 3 of the nutrients for which you found that you are either over or under consuming them. So the 3 that you think are going to be most important to you right now. And for each of those 3, briefly explain why you chose that particular nutrient. For instance, if hypertension runs in your family, you might choose to target sodium as one of the nutrients that's especially important to you to pay attention to. And please do not think that I am talking about sodium all the time because I think everyone should be choosing that. I'm simply trying to provide a through line between the directions in all of the sections. After you have identified the 3 nutrients of most importance to you and explained why those were important, you're going to go back up to the previous table, and you are going to choose 2 specific changes for each of those nutrients that you would be most willing to change. So there's 3 nutrients, and for each you're picking 2 changes that you would do first. And so in total, you are going to highlight 6 changes. Now you can see from the example here, if this person chose sodium and carbohydrate as 2 of the 3 nutrients to particularly pay attention to, they highlighted 2 strategies for each of those nutrients. All right. The next step is to go back to your nutrition calc profile and make revisions to your intakes based on those changes. So for instance, delete the regular soup and instead insert the low sodium soup. Add that apple to the bedtime snack. Those kinds of things. Whatever were the choices that you decided to highlight. Once you've made those 6 changes, select the 3 days again and now generate another all daily reports that will reflect your new intakes with the modifications of those 6 changes. And then you're going to upload the all daily reports as a PDF to the course page. Then you're going to complete another table very similar to the one that you completed in part 1 of the project. Same steps, but now it's going to reflect these 6 changes. And you will likely see changes to the amount consumed, not just for the 3 nutrients that you prioritized, although those are likely going to have the biggest changes, but you will probably also see some other changes to other nutrients and possibly your calorie intake as well. Now, again, similar to the previous section of the project, you are going to identify in the modified report. So after you made those 6 changes, which of your nutrients would be meeting your needs, which nutrients would still be below your recommended intakes, and which would be above. Remember, again, that you want to use critical thinking when completing this. So if sodium is under what's recommended, the 2300, which is really more of a upper limit, then you probably want to not mark that as being below your needs, but it would be meeting your needs. So just another example. And then you're going to reflect on the results of your changes. And there are specific questions. Please answer all 3. And then for your final thoughts, you're going to reflect on physical activity, nutrition, and also overall takeaways from the project. So here, for each type of physical activity, you need to complete an answer. You can either explain how you are already meeting the recommendations, or if you're not, one realistic change you might make to incorporate more of that activity into your routine. Then you're going to identify 3 specific dietary improvements that you could potentially make, again, to help you reach your health goals. I've given a couple examples here of goals that are not very specific. So here's an example of a goal that is very specific and detailed. After each of the 3 goals, you're going to identify potential barriers that might make it tougher for you to achieve those goals, and then a solution, something that could help you overcome the barriers. Finally, you're going to list the top 5 things you learned by doing the project, and you can reflect on all 3 of the sections of the project. Please, once more, remember to be detailed, to be specific, and to demonstrate that you are thinking critically about what this project showed you and what possible implications that might have for the choices you want to make in the future. That's it for my explanations for this project. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.